Welcome. My name is Sean Robbins, and I currently serve as Project Associate for the Center of Policy and Practice at the Association of Community College Trustees. Over the past 2 years, the Association of Community College Trustees and Education Strategy Group led the Non-Credit and Credit Alignment Lab, a 2-year initiative to support 20 community colleges and 4 community college systems in developing new or improved pathways between non-credit and credit programs. Participating community college leaders have been working to eliminate the silos that too often exist across non-credit and credit divisions, guided by ESG's a more unified community college framework. ACCT embarked on this project because we recognize the critical and increasing importance non-degree and non-credit credentials play in our post-secondary ecosystem. We also recognize that more is needed to support staff, faculty, instructors, and importantly, students in non-credit programs. We view non-credit and credit alignment as a strategy and means to help more learners achieve actualized economic mobility. I am joined by my colleagues from the Education Strategy Group, San Diego College of Continuing Education, and North Shore Community College to discuss the critical importance of equitably serving learners who begin their post-secondary journey through non-credit training. In a minute, I will kick it off to my colleague Annie Phillips at Education Strategy Group to lead us through a panel discussion. But first, I am delighted to introduce you to our panelists today, including 2 hardworking, amazing students we've had the privilege to learn from. Today, representing San Diego College of Continuing Education is Dr. Jacqueline Hester and Alexis Primo Hawkins. Dr. Jacqueline Hester is a versatile leader who can turn a vision into reality through her transformative leadership. As the resident and instructional dean of the Emeritus and Child Development Programs at San Diego College of Continuing Education, Jacqueline oversees the second largest academic program in the college and serves as a project manager for the Non-Credit and Credit Alignment Lab. Alexis Primo Hawkins is a dedicated student, parent, and advocate for learner success. As a graduate of the San Diego College of Continuing Education, Alexis leveraged her certificate in child development to pursue a degree to meet her personal and professional goals in child development. Alexis also serves as an ambassador for Generation Hope, which is dedicated to fostering parenting student success at colleges and universities across the U.S. Today, representing North Shore Community College is Lori Vinci and Kelly Grimmer. Lori Vinci currently serves as Dean of Health Professions at North Shore Community College. She is a skilled leader that is focused intensely on student success. Through the Non-Credit and Credit Alignment Lab, Lori led the institution through a student journey mapping exercise that highlighted and unearthed barriers learners enrolled in non-credit face on their campus. Through her leadership and her support of her executive leadership, Lori is here to discuss key commitments the college made to serve learners more equitably. She is joined by Kelly Grimmer. Kelly is a student, parent, and is committed to building more prosperous communities through drug and alcohol rehabilitation. We first met Kelly a couple of years ago as we launched this project, and she has become an advocate for ensuring seamless transitions between non-credit and credit coursework at the college. Before I pass the microphone over to my colleague, Annie Phillips, here are just a few reminders. 1, we are recording this webinar and will be posting it at a later date. And 2, please enter all questions that you have into the chat for our moderator and panelists. With that, I'll turn things over to my colleague, Annie Phillips, to introduce herself and get us started.
Awesome. Thanks so much, Sean, for the introduction of our awesome panel. I'm going to say a few words before we get started. Certainly not the least of which is that we really enjoyed partnering with our colleagues at ACCT on NCAL, as we call it, the Non-Credit and Credit Alignment Lab. For those who aren't familiar with ESG, we are a mission-driven consulting firm that believes education beyond high school is essential to be successful in today's economy. And we work with leaders in K-12, higher ed, workforce, as well as the private sector to ensure more Americans can have access to and succeed in quality post-secondary training. My work at ESG focuses specifically on that non-degree credential space, right? One sector of a much larger market for post-secondary education and training. And specifically, I work with my colleagues at ESG to ensure we have the systems and structures in place to make sure that non-degree training, non-credit training, short-term training options, which often are what fit into individuals' lives better than a degree does, that those options don't dead end learners, but instead open doors, whether that's open doors directly into the workforce or to additional education and training. NCAL, or the Non-Credit and Credit Alignment Lab, which we're here to talk about today, was an opportunity for community colleges and community college systems across our nation to investigate what it takes to break down the silos that we've created between non-credit and credit and align functions so that more learners have those open doors, right? Know their next step, whether that's a career or additional education and training. Our theory of action on NCAL came from a report that Sean mentioned earlier that my team at ESG published in 2020 called A More Unified Community College. That report basically detailed strategies to help colleges better align their programs. And there were 5 main things there. The first, treat all students as students, build pathways between non-credit and credit credentials, align departments and governance, make non-credit programs credit-worthy or credit-based, and remove barriers to transition. We've written a lot about those. We have resources from our work in NCAL, but I wanted to mention the framework because we've partnered with ACCT today, and we've done a lot of these webinars on the NCAL work, on our framework, but we've never just focused on one element of that framework. And today's element will focus almost exclusively on that first one, treat all students as students. And before we get started, I just want to say 2 quick things about why that's our focus today. And the first is really about our reason for being here. You're probably on this webinar because your college has some sort of student success mission, and you're looking for new and innovative ways to apply that student success mission to learners who start in non-credit. And that's what I hear consistently when we do this work around the country, right? That we want to build equitable pathways for our learners. In fact, the 20 colleges and 4 systems that we worked with in NCAL, every single one of them, when we asked them about their motivation, talked about building pathways for learners. And I mention that because of the 5 elements of the framework, it's the one driving us, but it's also the easiest to forget, right? When we're doing things like we're heads down and creating articulation agreements to offer credit, when we're updating the website to make sure we're communicating these pathways to learners, we often forget about the student experience that we're offering and why we're here in the first place. And so our motivation, right, is a lot of what's driving our reason for focusing on this element. And the second reason is something that sort of we discovered through the process of NCAL, which is that we actually know very little about learners who start in non-credit. So much of our research base, so much of our data are on students who start in the credit space, the traditional student, if you will. But we learned through NCAL that college administrators actually don't do a great job of talking to our learners in non-credit sort of systematically. And as a part of NCAL, we conducted student focus groups, and I had colleges say to me, you know, we survey our credit students, we focus group our credit students, we survey our alumni in credit, but I don't know that we've ever formally sat down and learned about the experience at our college when you start in non-credit. And, you know, the challenge with that is if we don't talk to learners in non-credit, then we won't know actually, right, why they're here in the first place, whether that's to get a quick job or to pursue that next degree. And so we're focusing on student voice today and the experiences of some of the students in the NCAL project so that you know, we can make good on kind of our promise and why we're all here, but also so that we can just better understand what it takes to support students towards their end goals. And so with that, I'm going to ask all of our panelists to come off mute, join me, turn on their cameras, and, you know, want to join Sean in thanking you all for being here today and be a part of this conversation. Kelly and Alexis are our 2 students on the panel. I want to start with a question for you all, which is, why did you choose to enroll in a non-credit program in the first place? And what was your plan when you started? And maybe Kelly, we'll start with you.
I chose to enroll in a non-credit was because at the time I didn't know what I wanted to do really. I knew I wanted to do more than what I was doing at work, but I didn't know where to start. Did not want to go back to school full time, could not go back to school full time as a single parent and working full time. I didn't know where to pull those hours out of the day. So we actually at work received an email from North Shore that was like, hey, we have this great opportunity to do this non-credit program. We're looking for people already, in the field. Here's some criteria we're looking for. And I happened to fit all of it. And that's how I started.
Awesome.
And
so the opportunity presented itself a little bit. There was this inclination like, yeah, I want to go back to school, but I'm not sure it's going to fit in my life. And this this opportunity landed in your lap and was a good fit in the end.
Yep.
Awesome. And what was the program that you enrolled in, and did you have
Community?
a plan?
So I didn't really have a plan. I won't lie to anybody about that one. I just kind of was like, we'll see what happens when I start here. And it was the community health worker program. And then when I was actually in that program, one of the professors was like, hey, there's like a second part to this that wasn't really advertised. If you wanted join into this, it's like a 2-part non-credit. If you want to become a recovery coach and do that program, we're offering that too. And it's kind of what happened, and just they kept recommending things.
Okay, I want to get back to that because I know your faculty support was a big part of what helped you sort of along the pathway. Alexis, same question to you. Why did you go to non-credit, and what was your plan, if you had one?
Okay, first off, thank you so much for having me. And this is like a lot of my story, my journey is I'm a student parent, and I'm wearing many hats. So right now I'm not driving, but I'm commuting, so I'm safe. So the reason why I enrolled in non-credit is so that well, in the child development program was so I could become more knowledgeable of my children's development and be a better parent to them by knowing the tools and just having guidance in their development so I could be able to assist them better as they grow. In addition, the business program, I was enrolled in a business class so that I could know more about being an entrepreneur, as well as resources available in the community to assist me in operating my home licensed daycare.
Awesome. Okay, so you were a parent to begin with. You wanted to improve as a parent. I think it's awesome you think about further education for that. But you also had a home business, a home daycare, and you were interested in kind of taking that to the next level through these skills.
Yes.
Switching over kind of from the administrative lens, right? Dr. Hester, maybe I'll start with you. Why did your institution want to join the NCAL initiative? And, what was it that motivated you all to be thinking about these pathways from, child development in the case of Alexis's example into sort of longer term credit opportunities?
Yeah, I think for us, it was really truly a guide because the non-credit was essentially on our chancellor's priority list in his strategic plan at the time. And so we began to have those conversations because we did start to see the cool thing about our program in continuing education with San Diego. We were really looking at the data early on before this opportunity became available. And so we did start to notice a shift with some of our students transitioning from our continuing education college to our credit colleges. But this was a better way for us to really spend some time and to kind of galvanize all the different constituents and groups at the credit college, as well as continue ed, to kind of come together to talk about how do we really bridge this gap and really make it beneficial for our students at CE.
So it was so non-credit was kind of a part of the strategic priorities from the beginning. Sounds like you had a little bit of data that said, hey, it
Yes.
looks like, this is a pathway people are following, let's strengthen it.
Yes.
And so Alexis has been able to benefit from that as a learner. Lori, same question to you. But in the case of kind of this community health worker program and sort of health sciences more broadly at North Shore, why is this a priority for the college?
It was a priority for the college because the landscape of higher education is changing. And so our president recognized, as well as, other leadership at the college, that we needed to be looking at our non-credit students and how we can align those with obviously our credit programs. And we do have some champion faculty that work with our community health worker, our human service pathways, and our recovery coach. And truly it was faculty who brought it forward that like, hey, if we have a non-credit student who does this, they can do this as well. And so they really spearheaded, let's take this on, let's look at this, let's see how we can benefit those non-credit students with just a couple of extra courses so that they can not only get a certificate, but then further sort of their degree. And while we were going through this NCAL project, this too became part of our strategic initiative as well. So we've been working on this for a couple of years now.
Excellent. You all made my job very easy. I think to summarize, right, Dr. Hester, you're talking about pathways and, right, the student success mission at the college. We're seeing people follow this. Let's strengthen it because we know what it means for their outcomes. And Lori, I mean, same thing for you. You're adding into this element of, right, workforce development. We know it's important for our economy to continue to allow opportunities for individuals to skill up, particularly in the health sciences, right, in your community. And the common thread here is there was a blessing from the top, right? This is something that is in your strategic priorities, and I think only strengthened through your experience kind of in the NCAL project. Switching back to Kelly and Alexis, because I want to talk about your experience in your non-credit program specifically. So where you sort of started on the pathway, obviously you were both able to complete that program successfully. Who or what helped you succeed? And maybe Alexis, we'll start with you this time.
I had a lot of help. So my first thing returning to well, when I started San Diego College of Continuing Education, I reached out and created my community of support. So Kat Prindle, she was my child development counselor, and she assisted me with mapping out, the pathway was available, but which courses do I need, and especially being a parent, based on the age of my children, because there are a lot of child development classes and pathways from infant all the way to like 7 years old. So Kat Printer was able to help me, choose which classes I needed. Zuri was able to help me with my resume and cover letter. And even until now, being an alumni, I'm still able to have those resources as I seek jobs opportunities. Also, Claudia in the administrative office, she's always a call away for general questions and guidance. And also my child development professors, Rachel Rose and Stacy, they were there to help me not only during the class, understanding the coursework, but also, if I had any personal questions, especially pertaining to the children, like this is a specific issue I have. I know this is not a topic of the class right now, but I need some guidance. And they were always there to help.
Excellent. So just to summarize, right, you had that pathway mapping support from a specific counselor. You had career development, right, support with the resume. You had academic support, right, from your faculty who communicated these pathways. Sounds like too, you had administrative support because navigating college, let's be honest, is not easy. So someone was there to remove those barriers. And actually, Dr. Hester, I'd love to kind of switch over to you. Were these all things that you all intentionally put in place to help learners succeed? Like what from your perspective do you think San Diego over the course of the last 2 years improved in order to help more learners like Alexis kind of successfully finish their non-credit program, but also transition?
Absolutely. So I think for us really was the framework of the NCAL framework really helped us. And so one of the things treating all students as students was really, really big for us, and access. And so Alexis really talked about those wraparound services that we provide for our students. And we really wanted to be intentional to let our students know that these resources are available for you. And so we began to have those conversations by really including the counselors, working directly with our faculty. So we had ongoing meetings, really talking about the pathways for different certificates. Even with the NCAL, what really helped us is with our marketing materials now. So we have new marketing now that has really like a true guided pathway model for our students to see what credentials they can actually receive, but also we have what is called credit by exam classes. So the classes that we offer at Continuing Ed actually have our students gain those credit. And so when we started this pathway, not only the pathway, but when we really started this NCAL work, one of the things we noticed is that we offered our students maybe 3 credits that can transfer over to our credit colleges. But now, since the faculty have really been working together across the colleges, now our students can come in our continuing education classes and receive up to 9 credit hours. And so we really have been intentional to have the conversation. And really what I love about the NCAL work is it hasn't stopped. And so we continue to have ongoing meetings quarterly. And so our presidents have been heavily involved. Dr. King leads the initiative to have like NCAL symposiums. And so we really, our next one is coming up in May at our city college. And so we really have been intentional about having these conversations. And so when we started this NCAL work, we really started with our CNA and child development. And we really use this as a model. And our goal really was to do it right the first time. And so myself, I had an opportunity to co-lead this initiative with Dean Massa at City College. And we really began to build this work. We said, we want to be intentional about making sure that we stay student-centered and student-focused, but really building an authentic community with our faculty as well as with our chairs. And honestly, this initiative has really been a heavy lift for our faculty, and they have really taken the mantle of this NCAL work and have just done exceeding abundantly that we could ever dream of, because it's really student focused. And so we continue to use this framework in our other programs. And so now we're looking at our culinary and automotive, because we found that this worked, and really intentionally having these wraparound services and getting the buy-in from our counselors, our student services has really been amazing, and really a shift in our enrollment when our students are transitioning from non-credit to credit. And so it's been an all-around win-win for the college and the institution in general.
Yeah, Dr. Hester, I mean, you mentioned the staff, you mentioned the faculty, right? And starting there, and if I may editorialize a little bit, right? You're talking about culture change. You're talking about getting together, making sort of non-credit a part of what credit faculty talk about, and making credit a part of what non-credit faculty talk about, right? In their stand-up meetings. And you can't underestimate that to be able to do all these other things like the counselor pathway mapping, like removing barriers, like providing academic support and communicating these pathways to learners. So thank you for giving us, I think, a really tactical example about how you sort of foster that change at the institution. Switching to the North Shore example, maybe starting with you, Kelly. So you were able to successfully complete your non-credit courses. What or who kind of helped you be successful?
It was a little bit of everybody. I had a couple of professors, one who was like, you can't stop here. You're going to waste your time stopping here, pretty much. She was like, you got to keep going. She was like, if you stop here, you're selling yourself short. She's like, you could have pretty much taught the class we just did. So she's like, you have to keep going. You work in the field currently. She was like, that right there with work experience and like life experience. She was like, reach out to, off the top of my head, I won't lie, I cannot remember what the department's called right now, but she was like, you can get like work-life credit, the non-credit class that you just did. She's like, they can transfer that into credits for you to continue with your degree in drug and alcohol rehabilitation. And then, so I listened to her, went on, and then that's when I met Michelle Simons and Steve Chisholm, who are 2 of the main professors in that program. And both of them just like kept pushing me, and they're like, nope, this is the class you need to sign up for. Do this one next. It's going to make the most sense for you to do it next. Take these back to back. It will help you out. And Michelle spent like hours on the phone with me with like, okay, fill out this form here, like, let's do your FAFSA. I will sit on the phone and walk you through this, even though it is not my job and we have financial services. She's like, but I know you, we're on the phone, let's do it. She was probably the biggest support I had at school, because like I said, from these are the classes you want to take first, jump in, start with this. And still I can reach out to her and be like, hey, this is what I've done. Where should I go next? What makes sense for you, knowing how my brain works? What makes sense to take next?
Yeah. Yeah. So kind of, I'm seeing similar themes, right? That faculty who's pushing you. I mean, Kelly, like, do you think if those faculty hadn't nudged you in that direction, it would have been something that you pursued? And it's okay if the answer
Probably
is
not.
yes, but
No,
yeah.
probably not. Like I said, when I started, I wanted to gain more knowledge, but I didn't know where I wanted to go.
Yeah.
And then in that first non-credit program, when I was, bouncing around ideas of like, what can I do without at my age going back to school and getting my master's degree? Like, what can I do to continue in this field with not just doing administrative work, like doing actual hands-on client work? That's what I was told. Hey, if you do the drug and alcohol rehabilitation program and get your associates, you can then do your hands-on hours and actually sit for the state test to become licensed to do what you want to do.
Mhm.
And I was like, oh, good to know, because I had no idea. And I had actually been looking into that for like 6 months of like, how can I do this without going back to school to get a master's degree? Because I don't have time for that.
Yeah.
Mhm.
Yeah. There's this kind of misconception, I think, out there that, anyone who's going into a non-credit program, like they have a very clear vision of, I'm getting these skills and I'm going back out into the workforce. And yes, there are learners like that. And we sort of say like credit students, they are less clear and, they, want more supports. But the reality is we all kind of are figuring it out. And we probably have equally as many learners in non-credit as we do in credit who, right, Kelly, like have something to learn from a faculty talking about licensure or, talking about the degree program that can take you to the next level or how you compare, right, in a classroom. And so I think it's important that we foster that culture. And so Lori, I guess my question to you is like, what has North Shore Community College done, whether it's through NCAL or otherwise, to make sure that that's not an isolated incident, right? That that's not because of one really exceptional faculty member or staff member who went above and beyond, but instead that it is an ingrained part of the student experience.
Yeah, so at North Shore, what we did as part of the NCAL project is we really looked at 3 facets of a student experience. One would be obviously the academic piece, one would be the communication piece, and one would be the student service piece. And we developed 3 core teams to really look at the student experience from those 3 perspectives. And it included everybody in the college who had their hands in any one of those areas, so that this really became everyday language and everyday concepts for everyone at the college to sort of learn about and sort of embrace. And having faculty and department chairs and advisors and financial aid. I mean, everybody in the college was involved in these committees. And so it really was embraced, having students like Kelly and then having, faculty like Steve and Michelle, and then, even Erin, really helping drive home the importance of this and the benefits not only to the student, but also to the faculty and the institution.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm. Absolutely. Yeah, that committee structure, I feel like you all really committed to that and were able to see it through. And obviously committees are something we're used to in higher ed, but at North Shore, I think that combination of that plus a really clear why made you all very, very successful in kind of scaling what Kelly was describing, right? This help and this support and understanding to navigate the pathway.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Talking specifically, so we call it the non-credit and credit alignment labs. Obviously, that transition between non-credit and credit is one that we're interested in unpacking. And so Kelly and Alexis, maybe Alexis starting with you this time, or she may be frozen. So maybe Kelly might be a better one to start with. Talk to us about your transition to the credit course. Did anything surprise you about that transition? Why you ultimately ended up going that route and who made it possible for you?
Honestly, how easy it was is what surprised me. I've had some not so good experiences at other schools. And it made me really nervous, I won't lie, when it was, oh, you have to talk to financial aid, you have to talk to this person, I was like, I don't want to. I was like, what do you mean I have to? So then that's also when, you know, Michelle was like, nope, all right, we're on the phone. This is what you're going to do. You, like, enroll in school, get accepted. Once you're accepted, shoot me an email. We'll set up time to talk again. And then, you know, I got back on the phone with her and she was like, all right, perfect. You're accepted, and enroll in any class that begins with, like, I don't remember what she told me now, but she's like, you know, the 3 letters and 100. She was like, whatever you can fit in your schedule with work and being a parent, that's what you want to sign up for right now. And she's like, you know, do your FAFSA, do all of that, and then get in touch with the financial department afterwards. And she was like, make sure everything's all set. These are the people you want to reach out to. Here you go.
And do you mind, you mentioned, Kelly, and I know this is a part of your video and your profile and it's part of your story, but you mentioned the credit and just kind of annoyance and fear of moving in that direction. Could you talk about maybe the experience you've had in the past with sort of degree programs that you've pursued?
Yeah. So right after high school, I went to college, like a lot of kids my age were forced to do. I had no idea what I was doing at the time. I just signed a whole bunch of paperwork. Nobody explained anything to me. Went to school for 2 years. Ended up having 1 class left, but I had some family stuff going on, stopped going to school for a couple of months. While I was out of school, my school was actually shut down and lost their accreditation. And I now was like 20 with $40,000 worth of student loan debt and nothing to show for it. Couldn't transfer my credits anywhere, couldn't do anything. So I had a really bitter taste in my mouth for school at the time and was like, I'm not doing this. This is after my experience. Why would I want to do this? I'll just continue working wherever. Then a couple years later, I was like, all right, you need to go back to school, like figure out what you want to do with yourself. I went to another local school in my area to talk to them about getting into a nursing program with them. And the admissions team was so disrespectful with how they spoke to me. Pretty much was like, hey, you're too dumb to do this. I wouldn't even try. So again, left another school with like a horrible taste in my mouth of like, why am I doing this to myself? Like, this is fun. So I, you know, put college on the back burner again and said, I'm not doing this. I don't have it in me. Then I met someone who actually worked at North Shore, and was on the panel for like the nursing program and was like, no, you need to go apply again. This is what you need to do. This is how you do it. Let me know if you have questions. And I was like, okay. So I did it, but then ended up getting pregnant with my child and was like, all right, cool. Again, another thing. I'm not going to start a program to like stop in a couple months when I have a baby. So then put it on the back burner again, but then still ended up at North Shore doing a whole bunch of non-credit stuff. And here I am still doing stuff through North Shore.
Yes. And I know, cheers for that. And I think it just speaks to the complexity of life and how higher ed doesn't always fit into the real complexities of life.
Yeah.
I think too, you know, it says something that when you did go to pursue credit at North Shore, it was easier than you thought, right? Because when you have a supportive environment, when you feel empowered to choose the next part of your path, it actually is easier than the opposite.
Yeah, I mean, some of the staff, honestly, like in the like admissions department and the financial aid department, they even went like above and beyond, and they're like, let's see if there's anything we can do about your school from, you know, 20 years ago being shut down and you still paying those loans. Let's see if we can get any of those classes to like convert to anything here to help you. They're like, let us see what we can do on our end.
Amazing. Yeah.
Which, yeah, no, that is amazing because like I said, you know, being 20 with that much student loan debt and nothing to show for it, it was not fun.
Yeah.
And Alexis, kind of switching over to you now and the San Diego example, talk to me about your transition into credit. Did anything surprise you about that? Why did you ultimately decide to make that transition?
So my transition was pretty smooth because I was a returning college student. So I initially started San Diego Mesa College in 2010, and I did my first 3 years. I was pursuing my Black Studies associate degree. Um, but then family happened. I got married, and I was blessed with a daughter from my husband. And I took some time to take care of her. I was doing babysitting, and then decided to open my own daycare facility. So I had a daycare, and at that time, that's when I enrolled in the certificate classes to be knowledgeable, not only to be knowledgeable at that point for the business, to take care of the children entrusted upon me. And then later on, because I was at continuing ed for a while, just getting more and more knowledge. And later on, child development courses, they helped me with parenting. The business classes, they helped me, with managing the business. But after COVID, my enrollment just went down. I didn't have any more parents. And then at that same time, the children that I had in care, they had transitioned to preschool. So at that point, I was like, okay, now I have two children of my own. Let me just focus on higher education. And then is when I full times went back to San Diego College of Continuing Education. Now, the reason why I decided to do the non-credit classes to begin with was because I wanted to work on like time management skills, multitasking, being a parent. I wrote a couple things down. I wanted to work on just being more prepared to be a college student again, because I know the classes could, is a little more rigorous. So I did a really good job at San Diego College of Continuing Education. Then when I transitioned to Mesa College, being here previously, some things had changed, but I was able to get a counselor, and I was able to get some information regarding being successful here. So now, not only am I going to be graduating this spring with my Black Studies Associates of Arts, I'll be having my psychology associates in addition to social work. So I'll be having 3 degrees, and I'm very happy about it. I've been able to learn so much more. I was very, fearful being like a college student and a parent and having two kids on campus, because during the child development program, it was very inclusive. It was a good learning environment where I could take my children. So having them there, and that was the main reason why I got involved in the program, because I was able to have my children with me because I don't have any family or any support. So having them with me and involved in the learning process, it was so nice. And watching them learn as well. So when I transitioned to Mesa College, I was able to get them into the Child Development Center, which is really difficult. We need to work on having assistance for our children as parenting students, because then we can't go to school if we can't get adequate childcare. So that was really good. Mesa College has a Child Development Center, and I was able to get them there. And back to being fearful. I'll be quick, but back to being fearful. I was so afraid. I was like, oh, I'll have to figure it out. They're not as open to children as continuing education is. So I applied for a fellowship for student parents, and it's with Generation Hope. So now I get to advocate for parenting students, and I get to motivate these parenting students and let them know, like, it's okay, you can do it. And also speak with institutional leaders, speak with the board of trustees, speak with other persons at Mesa College that make decisions, and like be the voice of other parenting students, like, hey, we're here, these are things that we need. So I was offered a position, so financially I'm more stable because I am the project assistant of our president here at Mesa College.
Amazing.
So,
Wow.
yeah.
Yeah. And did that surprise you? You know, right? You had this opportunity to now advocate for parent students, the Child Development Center, right? You could bring your kids to school and make sure that they're, in a safe place while you're, in class. Did that surprise you at all, or were you expecting that?
It did surprise me. And I was really fearful because at that time with my family life, it was rocky. It was not the greatest. And this was like the beginning of a new me. It's like, okay, I'm gonna go to school. I'm gonna do what's in my control and, get in higher education to get a better job, to be more stable for my children in this transition, becoming a single mom. I don't know how I'm gonna do it. And then this is something with, a lot of people, and this is why I'm trying to advocate for students and adult learners that are not students already. It's like it's possible because you have this fear, like, I don't think I can do it. There might not be help, but if you just try, it's amazing. So I'm able to have like this really other community here at Mesa College to help me. There's a food pantry here as well as continuing education. The food pantry is there. And I would think, I don't really have a full-time job. How am I going to feed the kids? I want to go to school. Should I go to school or should I work? But I'm able to go to school and I'm still able to balance family and taking care of my little one.
Yeah. It sounds like you have a lot of support around you with the help of the college, and I'm happy you were able to kind of connect to those resources that are offered, because sometimes we don't communicate them that well in higher ed, and so they do come as a surprise. Lori, quick kind of question for you. As I think about all these different services, and Kelly mentioned you got to go to financial aid, you got to register. It is still pretty complex when you think about that student journey from point A to point B. And yes, there are all these supports, but are we communicating them properly? I know North Shore prioritized mapping that student journey out so that it could be streamlined. Could you tell us a little bit about how you all did that as a means to better communicate and smooth the pathway for learners?
Yeah, so we mapped the non-credit student sort of journey from beginning to end, starting with registering, going to classes, and any student services that were involved. And we did the same for our credit program students. And when we had these maps, we realized that there were a lot of gaps, but there are also a lot of redundancies. And so the process of, okay, so we have, two departments doing two very similar things. However, the information is very sort of disjointed because non-credit knows the non-credit world, and obviously the credit knows the credit world, but we need to marry those so that in Kelly's example, we can really ensure that all students are aware of these sort of pathways and any student services that are on campus that are available to them. And so we had those maps, we've shared them far and wide, and we've talked about sort of processes. And one of the biggest challenges for us really is systems, IT systems, who uses Banner, who uses Salesforce. The students at North Shore do get an email, they do go into our system, but they're not necessarily in our advising system. And, they register versus Salesforce, where our students register using a self-service. And so really trying to look at and work with not just those three teams that I mentioned earlier, but also our IS department to say, how can we break down sort of these redundancies and these gaps to make sure that everybody is all on the same page, that the student is a student. And, our motto at North Shore is, one college, one student, one experience. And so that's what we're all really striving for.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm. You mentioned the IT systems. This is something that came up in NCAL a lot, and how, man, we use one over here, but not the other one over there, and never the two shall meet. That is not the case at San Diego. And I know you all have done a ton of work, both kind of qualitatively and quantitatively, to make sure that, this work of alignment, we can measure and understand, are we making progress on it? How many learners are actually transitioning, right? Believe it or not, to our students on here, it's actually really difficult to measure that when our systems don't speak to one another. And so Dr. Hester, could you talk a little bit about how you all have kind of used data to drive decision-making at San Diego? And also, I think specifically as it relates to today's conversation, how you've brought student voice in to inform those decisions?
Oh, absolutely. So before I start, I would be remiss if I didn't mention, thank you, Kelly and Alexis, for sharing your person of narrative, I think is truly impactful, but also it just shows that you're resilient and you're able to overcome obstacles. And with that feedback that you mentioned, when we kind of did our qualitative research, that's what we were trying to really hear, our student voices. What are the things they are experiencing, whether good or bad? And we all know that we had some areas of opportunity. And so when we began to do that qualitative data in focus groups with our students, they shared some experience that they had. And so we began to look at our onboarding process with student services. One of the things that was kind of confusing because we had 2 applications. And so we began to one application that the college would CC apply. And so now we rolled that out. But I think the next thing we found out in our student voices and feedback was we were not giving our students the information. So we had these credit by exam classes. The student really didn't know what they were. And how do you follow that process? We assume that students just wanted to come to us and get a credential. And so we never really talked about other areas of opportunity they can explore with the credit college. And so when we got the feedback from students, we're like, oh, you know what? Maybe we should stop assuming as administrators, because we've been in academia for so long, and let's really listen to the students. But beyond listening, let's do something about it. And so we really became intentional about having processes in place. And so this is where our student service team came in play. I'm my vice president of student services, Dr. Carter. We talked about the onboarding process, and so when Alexis talked about the counseling, how do we integrate counseling from the beginning? And I think the second thing was truly our messaging. We had to have a thing of, I like to call the model one band, one sound. We have to make sure that we're saying the same thing and making sure that we're role modeling that for our students. So when they come in, making sure you have a great experience. Think about that student that comes through the door. That could be your mom or cousin. How do you want that student to be treated? So we really had to be intentional about that. Even in the classroom, having faculty really talk about credit by exam with students, really explaining and how that process goes. One thing we really became intentional in the last 2 semesters was inviting our credit college faculty to come and talk about our students, talk about some of the things and expectation that they'll have in the classroom. And then also just really building community, having those students put the face with the name. So when they do transition to that college that they select, they're like, oh, hey, that's Chair Rachel, or that's this chair. And so now they're feeling a little bit more comfortable and just really giving them that assurance to know that we're with them and that we're with them every step of the way. And if our students succeed, that's what makes our heart sing.
Couldn't have said it better myself. I think you very eloquently sort of described what I was trying to say earlier, which is like, we don't talk to our students in non-credit, so we just don't know, right? What they want, right? Yes, maybe it is that credential, to your point, and again, right, credential into a job, but maybe it is actually credential into additional education and training, or maybe it is to start a business in a field that they've been working and building that pathway into your business programs. And so I think we don't know until we ask, right? And the reason I think it's so important, and Dr. Hester, thank you for sharing this message, is because there is a belief out there, right, that we don't need to build these pathways because it's not what learners want. And that's just not true. It may be true for some, but it is not by any means true for all. And so we need to make sure that we leave doors open, our learners have options. I am going to switch. I am seeing a question in the chat from Heather Clausen that asks about kind of bridging the gap between Banner and other IT systems when it comes to non-credit and credit. Now, Lori and Dr. Hester, I know neither of you are like data whizzes, but I'm wondering if Dr. Hester, this is a question that you could answer. Maybe we can follow up with Heather if she needs additional follow-up.
All right, so what we started to do was be intentional in our symposiums. What we started to talk about was our counselors from the credit college began to say, hey, we're confused about this as well. And so having those conversations, talking about the systems. And so one of the things we intentionally done, and this is all faculty driven. The faculty start to put in their core syllabus on day 1. Let's talk about what it means to have non-credit to credit. Hey, the class that you're enrolled in, you potentially can earn up to 3 credit hours. But this is the process you need to follow to ensure that this credit that you get at the credit college. And so we've really been intentional. We have put it on our website, and this messaging is constantly being reinforced in doing so. So of course, we're also in the CCC Apply. But again, one thing that we're grateful for is that in PeopleSoft that we use, so we use CS9 PeopleSoft, the credit college, as well as us at the non-credit, can see a student's profile. We can see exactly what certificates they've completed, what courses they're currently active in. And so we are on the same system, but we're just at separate colleges, but we're able to kind of see the students' information to help guide and have a better student experience, right? To talk about, because some students forget, I've never taken a class. Well, you know, you took a class maybe in 2015. They're like, oh, I did. And I'm like, yeah, you got a credit. And so really just being equipped and armed as on the back end, who's helping the students, and just really having that information, because I think student facing and that student experience is critical. And one thing we like to say is that when we have a student walk in, we want to make sure that they walk out happy, because we maybe never had that experience again. And so I think Kelly hit the nail on the head. So many times we have students, because they built up the courage to walk in, we got to make sure that they leave out with a great experience. And we just want to make sure that that experience is impactful. So you may not enroll that day, but you'll be back. But when you walk away, you'll know, I had a great experience. And then we find out that students talk, right? And so a lot of our marketing really comes from students saying, hey, I had a great experience. And so I think that's one of the great things about us in continuing ed, because our students have great experience and they come back and they tell their other friends and family.
That's right. Yep. It's your best, repeat business is your best kind of business, right? Excellent. Heather, if you have additional questions about data, we did create some briefs, one of which was on, right, how do you do a better job of measuring the transition between non-credit and credit? We did learn, if you talk to your vendor, like if you talk to Banner, there are ways to integrate IT systems, assuming you have an IT system in non-credit. There are also some workarounds around unique identifiers that can be done. I know University of Hawaii Community College System did some of that work as well in their participation as part of NCAL. Well, I have just a couple more questions to wrap us up today. I'm gonna start with kind of Dr. Hester and Lori, and maybe Lori, you wanna go first. What's one piece of advice that you have for those listening on this call who wanna get started on non-credit and credit alignment?
Dive right in. Just dive right in and just do it. And don't listen to the, it can't be done, because anything is possible. And we in higher ed always lived in two separate worlds, right? The non-credit world and the credit world, but they've collided and they need to. And so just nothing is impossible. Take the dive, work with the faculty, work with your leadership teams, just do it. Not to oversimplify, but honestly, just do it.
And Dr. Hester?
I think for me is, if not, then when, and if not, why? Our students are dependent on us. I think the data shows just across the US in general that more students are going into non-credit. And so I know a lot of our credit colleges are struggling with enrollment. But if you really think about the student experience and you really think about making an impact and a difference, this is the time to do it now. We believe in the one band, one sound. We have at our campus NCAL champions. And if not you, then who, right? Because you have people that potentially, I think Alexis is the great example. She's able to impact her family, right? And so what does that mean for her son and daughters coming after her? You're creating generational wealth and opportunities for our students. So again, if not now, then when?
Yes. Awesome. Well, quite the call to action from my two colleagues here. And then Kelly and Alexis, to round us out and remind us of our why. This things, non-credit and credit alignment, these pathways from non-credit to credit, what opportunities have opened up for you since you enrolled and transitioned into that credit program through this whole journey? And, how has it aided in your kind of personal and professional growth? And maybe Kelly, we'll start with you and we'll end on Alexis.
Mine would be, the two big things for me is more experiences at work have opened up. I've been able to do more. I've already been able to start doing what I want to do at the end of the day. Super fun thing that made me super excited was one of my classes I had to write a curriculum for a youth substance use group. Well, I gave it to my supervisor and we now run that group in 2 of our sites. Wow. I personally don't run it, but I got to write the curriculum for it. And I was like, there's not many other admins in my company who can say we now run groups because they wrote the curriculum. So that was super fun and a good achievement. And the other thing is just that my daughter sees that what I'm doing. And Yep. Does she get annoyed that some nights I sit on Zoom for 2.5 hours and we don't get to go do something? She does, but she's a teenager and the wind blows and she's annoyed, so it's okay. um, but at the same time, like, it's so funny to hear her be like, you can't yell if we're on FaceTime, like my mom's in class and like she really needs to focus. And I'm just like, that's that's the biggest part to me, is that my kid is as excited as I am that I'm in school and that she is proud of it and tells everybody. Granted, she told her teachers I go to school for drugs and I had to clear that up. But she was still really excited to tell her teachers that like her mom was back in school.
Those are really moving reasons. Talk about impact. Lori, I'm sure you're really proud to hear that. And Kelly, you should be proud of yourself. Alexis, how about you? What doors has this opened for you? How has this affected your kind of personal and professional growth?
Personally, kind of like my educational goals growth, as I mentioned earlier, I'm able to graduate with the 3 associate's degrees. I know my next stage, I'm gonna pursue my bachelor's in Africana studies and child development, and hopefully get into the master's program at CBB master's program at San Diego was it State, SDSU. So, I know what I want to do next. I also was able to get a fellowship. I'm working as the project assistant of a president here at Mesa College. I'll tell you a little more about the fellowship as well, because this really gave me the understanding of what advocacy is, and it helped me to choose my major in social work, because I just love people and I love helping, and I want my experience to inspire, others. So I didn't know I could actually get a degree in it. So there's social work. Um, so 2 of my proposals for the fellowship, first, I was able to create a student parent healing circle where student parents on our campus, they could be able to understand the resources that are available and also provide motivation and inspiration among the group. So this was a really good space I was able to create. And also I was able to create the first student parent scholarship specifically for student parents. And it'll be available for 5 years here at Mesa in honor of my great grandma who, assisted persons in her community to achieve their higher educational goals and also their professional goals. So those were really good opportunities. Uh, Dr. Hester was sharing about, San Diego College of Continuing Education doing an amazing job at sharing with students the option of credit. Institutions like, San Diego Mesa College. And here, I had the opportunity to speak with the vice president and their ambassadors here at San Diego Mesa College. Um, he actually shared with me that it would be a good idea for me to help assist them, coaching them, being a former San Diego College of Continuing Education student in a non-credit program. Then that way I could share with students transitioning over to a credit institution, my journey, and just let them know, the things that assisted me, and let them know that it's possible. So those are really cool things. And also to piggyback on Kelly, it's really great to be a role model to my children. They come to campus with me sometimes and they love it here, and they ask, when is the other event? I want to go to an event. And they're just so happy to, I'm glad that they're not scared of the big buildings. They're not scared of the professors. They are so confident this young. So this is a really good experience.
Excellent. Well, you all have so much to be proud of. If you're still on the call, I know we're just about at time. We have some incredible videos, including these 2 incredible women, actually the 4 incredible women on this call, as well as others who have been engaged in our NCAL work. Candler has dropped that in the chat, but we will also follow up. We've got profiles, we've got a podcast coming out. thank you all for listening. Like I said, treat all students as students. It really is the foundation for our work. And these students, these administrators are really leading the way for all of us and how you make good on that promise at your institution. Thank you all so much for listening today. Thank you, ladies, for the courage to speak up and tell your story today. We've all learned a lot. Have an awesome day, and we'll see you next time.